In this video, I am explaining how someone becomes a part of the elite special forces in the United States Army. What's up? I'm U.S. Army veteran ThatChrisChaos, and in this video we are talking about how an individual becomes a part of Army's elite special forces, also known as the Green Berets. Now, this is the elite of the U.S. Army. The Navy has the Navy SEALs, the Marines have their thing, and I think the Air Force even have something too. But we're going to focus in this video on the Special Forces, which is in the United States Army. So before we get started, a little bit of a disclaimer. Just like with previous videos, usually there's things that I leave out for time purposes. But with this particular video, there's also some things that I have to leave out due to it being kind of considered classified. Now, it may not be as harsh as saying it's classified, but essentially there are people that go through this training and they are told that they are not allowed to talk about the specifics as to what was involved in the training to become Special Forces. And this is because the Army wants individuals that are elite, that are highly skilled individuals, not just people that were well prepared enough to know what to expect and was able to practice for it. So for that reason and out of respect, there are certain things in this that I will not talk about as far as how process goes, and everything that I'll be talking about is stuff that's just public knowledge, stuff that you could research by going to goarmy.com or other online resources. Things that are classified, I'm just simply not going to even bring up. So now that that's out of the way, let's dive right into it. Now, there are two avenues that someone could potentially take. One being someone coming straight off the streets, they join in the Army, and they want to go straight onto the path of becoming Special Forces. Another path is that maybe someone already is in the Army and later decides that they want to become part of the Special Forces. I'm going to start off with explaining the avenue from straight off the streets going right into training for the Special Forces. At some point that does lead into a portion where if individuals are already in the Army, they would then join into that process. So before we dive into the routes, let's talk about just some of the requirements. Now, an individual is going to have to be a U.S. citizen. It's not like how certain other cases where an individual could come into the Army as a green card holder and later get the citizenship. No, this one's straight up, you have to be a U.S. citizen. You're also going to have to be at least 20 years old. You will have to be between the rank of an E3 or an E6. There is exceptions for an E7, which I'm not going to dive into all that. There's also some different things as far as officers and warrant officers, as those are positions available in the Special Forces. But to not to overcomplicate this video, for the most part, I'm really going to be talking about the enlisted side of becoming Special Forces. Most of the stuff I'm going to talk about apply to all for the enlisted, for the warrants, and for the officers. But there are some little things here and there that I'm not going to dive into that are extra things that a warrant officer or an officer would have to have as a requirement. Now, going back to that last requirement where I talked about you have to be an E3. Now, that is the rank of a private first class, and some people may be confused. How am I going to be a private first class just coming into the Army? There are going to be a couple different ways you could go about that. For example, if you did JROTC in high school, you might be able to come into the Army as private first class. But if you didn't do that, it's how it's going to kind of work is your recruiter during the delayed entry program is going to give you a series of tests and different tasks and everything that will allow you to earn a little bit of rank when you first come into the Army and be able to come in as a private first class. So let's start off with that first option of coming into the Army straight directly on path towards becoming a member of the Special Forces. This is known as the 18 X-ray option. That meaning that you're going to be coming into the Army with the intent of becoming a part of the Special Forces. Now, the 18 is the series for Special Forces. X-ray just means you're yet to be assigned an MOS within the Special Forces until you complete the training. So if a soldier is at least 20 years of age, they have somehow earned the rank of PFC, they would then move on into the Army and go to OSUT. OSUT stands for One Station Unit Training, and it is the same path that a soldier who is going 11 Bravo would have to take. OSUT is really just made up of basic training and advanced individual training all combined into one. And this training will last 14 weeks. Now, these individuals would not just be solely with 18 X-rays, they're going to be with 11 Bravos, possibly 11 Charlies, other soldiers that are not necessarily trying for Special Forces, so they're all going to be kind of combined together. So after a soldier completes the 14 weeks of OSUT, they would then move on to Airborne School. Airborne School is conducted at Fort Benning, Georgia, and it is 3 weeks long. I'm not going to go into detail as to what is involved with Airborne School. At some point in time on this channel, I will go a little more in depth as to what to expect from Airborne School, and depending on when you're watching this video, it may be up, so check out my channel maybe after this video. But basically, this is to teach a soldier how to jump out of an airplane with a parachute and be able to land properly into a combat zone. So after the soldier completes airborne training, they then move on to the Special Forces specific style training. From here on out, their training is going to be taught by actual individuals that are member of the Special Forces. Part of the career path of a Special Forces member is that at some point in the career, they are going to have to become instructors. And so all these schools are taught by actual individuals that have been in the Special Forces for a matter of time. So next phase of a soldier doing the 18 X-ray option after airborne school is going to be SOPC, and that stands for Special Operations Preparation Course. This course is really designed, just like it says in the title, preparation. It is to prep a soldier for the next phase in their training towards trying to become a member of the Special Forces. It is very heavy on physical fitness as well as land navigation training to prepare you for the next phase. Now this course is 2 weeks long and is conducted at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Now as long as the soldier doesn't quit, doesn't get injured, and doesn't break any rules, they will then be able to pass and move on to the next phase of their training. The next phase of their training is SFAS, which is Special Forces Assessment and Selection. Now this is also the phase where if someone was already in the Army and at a later point decided they wanted to join the Special Forces, they would join in at this phase. As soldiers that have already been in the Army for a little bit and already achieved the rank of Private First Class and are at least 20 years of age, do not have to go through that previous phase of SOPC. SOPC is really only a phase that has to be done by individuals who are first coming into the Army straight towards Special Forces with that 18 X-ray option. So SFAS will be a mixture of those individuals straight out of basic and airborne school, as well as individuals that are already been in the military for a little bit of time and are now looking to become a part of the Special Forces. Now SFAS is also conducted at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and it is 3 weeks long. And it is broken down into different categories per week. During week 1 is the individual week. During this phase, there's a lot of running, a lot of ruck marching, and a lot of physical fitness, as well as a lot of tests. If a soldier is able to make it through week 1, not quit, and not fail anything, then they would move on to week 2. And week 2 is the land navigation week. During this week, soldiers are doing a lot of land navigation on top of physical fitness and other tests. And the land navigation is really the main focus of week 2, as it takes up day and night. Now this is not just your regular land navigation course. This course has rivers, it has trees, it has bushes, it has all sorts of crazy terrain. The points are not very close together. It may take you several hours to get from one point to the next point. And this can be an all-day event for some soldiers. So soldiers are having to navigate from one point to another point over crazy terrain for multiple miles during the day and during the night, and very, very little sleep and very little food. So if a soldier is able to get through week 2, meaning they pass land nav, they're able to get through all the crazy tests, they're able to get through all the enduring process without quitting, they then move on to week 3. Now week 3 is called team week. During this phase, there's a lot of different things that they're tested on and working together as a team. Just to give you an example of one of the events that a soldier may do during team week, they could be given maybe, let's say, 3-4 tractor tires with an axle and a bunch of other equipment, and they're told to get this equipment from point A to point B. Now they're not told what the distance is between point A to point B, they're just told to, hey, follow this road, follow this trail, whatever the case might be, and we'll tell you when to stop. Now this could be maybe 3 miles, 5 miles, it could be 20 miles. You don't know how far it's going to be. But you have to get this equipment from point A to point B, however far it might take you. If a soldier is able to survive week 3, they will then move on to selection. Now this means that a soldier can do great. They can go through all 3 weeks doing well. But if the instructors don't feel like they are Special Forces material, they might not make selection. Now during that 3 weeks, there are also other factors that could determine someone getting kicked out or being let go from the SFAS training. If a soldier fails or gets injured, they are able to return to try SFAS again. Or even if they go through the whole process and just don't get selected as well. Now the time limits as far as when they can come back kind of vary. Just to give you an example, if a soldier was to fail an event, they may have to wait anywhere from 6 months to a year before they can come back and retry SFAS. And then if a soldier gets injured, it can depend as well. It could be anywhere from 3 months to a year before they're allowed to come back to redo SFAS. But a lot of times it's really just up to the instructor's discretion as to when you can come back. Now if a soldier was to cheat or do something they're not supposed to do, get in trouble or whatever, they may receive a never to return. This means they would never be able to return to SFAS to try out for the Special Forces or any special operations. That includes Rangers or PSYOPs or any other organization. They would simply just go back to a unit and do regular Army stuff related to their MOS. Now with that being said, for a person who comes in as an 18 X-ray, if they were to fail during SFAS, they would essentially become an 11 Bravo, maybe an 11 Charlie. They would then be assigned a unit and they would go to a unit and be that MOS. If an individual came into the Army as, say, an 88 Mike or a medic or whatever the case might be and fail SFAS, they would then just go back to their unit that they came from and continue doing their normal Army job. So after a soldier completes SFAS and is selected, they would then receive a language as well as an MOS. Within the Special Forces, there are several different 18 series MOSs that a soldier could possibly receive. You have an 18 Bravo, which is a weapons sergeant. You have an 18 Charlie, which is an engineer sergeant. You have an 18 Delta, which is a medical sergeant. an 18 Echo, which is a communications sergeant, and an 18 Foxtrot, which is an intelligence sergeant. Now you'll notice that all those positions are called a something sergeant. And I'll get to that later, but basically if you're going into the Special Forces before you go to your group, you're going to be at least a E5, a sergeant. Now again, don't forget there are other categories for officers and warrant officers, but in this video I'm not explaining that. I'm just kind of, to keep it simple a little bit, we're just sticking with the enlisted side. So the next phase in the Special Forces training is really going to depend on if you're coming in from the 18 X-ray side or from already being in the Army. As if you are coming in from already being in the Army and you don't yet have your airborne wings, you haven't been through airborne school, then at this point that soldier would go through airborne school. But obviously the 18 X-rays would have already gone through it, and they will move on to the next phase, which is for BLC. BLC is the basic leaders course. Now if you came in from already being in the Army and you already have BLC, you will also get to skip this portion. But individuals doing the 18 X-ray, they will then move on to BLC. Now the Special Forces have their own special BLC. It's not the same basic leaders course that a soldier would go through if they were just in the regular Army. This is a Special Forces BLC. It's going to be a lot tougher, a lot more physically demanding than just a standard basic leader course. So the next phase in the training is known as SFQC, also referred to as the Q course. Now SFQC stands for Special Forces Qualification Course. Now the Q course could be anywhere up to a year, but there are some circumstances that could cause an individual to spend longer than a year during this training. So let's get into some of the details that is the Q course. Now there are several phases and tasks that are involved with the Q course, and the order of those tasks could get mixed around based on different circumstances. So I'm really just going to be explaining the different phases involved in the Q course, but this is not necessarily the order in which they are conducted in. So one of the phases is the tactics phase, and that is 13 weeks long. Now there are a lot of tactics training, just like the name says, but also involved in this 13 weeks is the SEER course. And SEER actually stands for Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape. So essentially it is teaching a soldier how to deal with if they were captured, how to deal with the pressure of not giving up some vital information, and then of course how to resist and escape from being a prisoner. Now, I've heard, but it's really just a rumor, so I can't verify it, but I have heard that during this training, the instructors are allowed to break a small bone, nothing serious obviously, maybe like a finger or something, while they are torturing that individual to prepare them for how to deal with being tortured by an enemy. But again, I'm not 100% sure if that is true or not, that's just what I've heard before. Another phase during the Q course is going to be MOS specific. So if the individual is selected to be an engineer or a medic or whatever, they're going to be doing that specific style training to that MOS. And that MOS training could last anywhere up to 15 weeks. Now, if a soldier is not able to pass that MOS training, depending on the instructors and how much they like that individual based on how much effort they've been giving or whatever the case might be, they may allow them to kind of restart MOS training and try again, or they may suggest that they try a different MOS and maybe this other MOS would be more suited for that individual, or they may even just kick them out of the Q course. And if a soldier gets kicked out of the Q course, it kind of varies as far as if they can just restart the Q course or if they're going to have to go back to SFAS. A lot of times that just depends on how long it's been since they went through SFAS. Another phase during the Q course is a collective training event known as Robin Sage. This is where soldiers will be broken down into squads and then inserted into a fake country known as Pineland. And Pineland is spread over several counties in North Carolina that includes role players involved with the exercise, as well as these tiny villages that are also involved. And so that squad will be inserted into that area, given a mission. They'll have role players they'll have to interact with. They'll have to navigate through the terrain to get across through Pineland and execute that mission that they are assigned. Another phase that a soldier is going to have to go through in the Q course is language and cultural training. This phase lasts approximately 24 weeks, and during this phase is where a soldier is going to learn the language they are assigned. Now, either prior to SFAS or in SFAS, a soldier would have taken what is called the D-Lab test. And this test is used to determine what language that soldier might be able to learn the best. This language also comes into play as to what group that soldier could be assigned, as each group has their own specific area in the world, so they have to be able to know the language for that area. Now, if a soldier is able to make it through all the phases and pass everything, they then move on to the final week. In this week, there is a lot of out processing. This is also the time when they will go through graduation, though. The soldier will then be given the Green Beret, as well as the Special Forces tab. And then after they have out-processed, they will then move on to their assigned Special Forces group. Now there are 7 total Special Forces groups, 5 being active duty and 2 being National Guard. There is not a Special Forces group for the reserve, so this is something that an individual would have to be on active duty or in the National Guard if they want to be a part of the Special Forces. So this video was highly requested by individuals in the comment section wanting to know more about how someone can join the Special Forces. But along with that, people are also curious about Delta, so I feel like I have to address a little bit about Delta Force. So let's talk a little bit about the 1st Special Forces Operations Detachment Delta, also known as Delta Force. Now they also have several different names that they may be known as. For example, some people may call them CAG, which stands for Combat Applications Group, or some may know them as Task Force Green. And then there are a couple other ones, but I'm not going to get into everything that people call the Delta Forces. Delta Force is usually the more commonly known one, as that's usually what they use like in movies and stuff. Now, members of the Delta Force are selected from the Special Forces, the 75th Rangers, and other Special Operations units. Now, this unit is tasked with very specialized missions. Things like hostage rescue, counterterrorism, reconnaissance of high-value targets, and more. Now, a lot of things about Delta Force is actually classified, such as the size of the unit and who the commander of the Delta Force unit is. But there are some stuff you can look up, and I'm not going to get too in-depth, but just know that Delta is not completely made up of Special Forces. They do have people from the Rangers that are selected to go to this. So this isn't something you can just simply join the Army with the intention of going directly into Delta Force. This is something you have to work up to, with either going through the Special Forces and then getting selected out of the Special Forces, or going through the process to become a Ranger or another Special Operations unit, and then go through the process of trying to get selected from those Special Operations to go to Delta Force. So my question to you is, let's assume that you have to pick a Special Operations unit in the US Army to try out for. Whether it be the Special Forces, the Rangers, PSYOPs, or any other Special Operations unit that I didn't mention in this video, what do you think you would go towards? I like the Special Forces. They have pretty badass equipment. The Rangers seem pretty cool too, but a lot of those two have some pretty crazy training leading up to it, so I might be more tempted to try PSYOPs. I understand PSYOPs is still pretty hard to do as well. It's not no walk in the park. But I think I would probably maybe enjoy being in PSYOPs a little bit more. So if you like this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up. Also, be sure to share the video if you think there's other people out there that may be interested in the knowledge of how an individual becomes a part of the Special Forces. If you want to check out some more of my content, I got a couple of videos over here that I suggested. And if you are not already subscribed to this channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right down there. It's there. Hit it. I'm ChristopherChaos. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time. See ya.